what's going on. All right? So let's recap what .NET Aspire is for those of you who don't know what it is, and we actually don't really call it .NET Aspire anymore. It's just Aspire. We'll get to that. Modern .NET apps use microservices, APIs, background workers, and we've got all these complex interconnected systems at this point, right? And when you start building and you take into this concept of cloud native, you want resilience, right? You want to be able to observe what's going on your application. Because when something's cloud native, let's face it, it's not running right here on this machine. It's running out in the cloud in a data center that's somewhere else. Might not even be on your continent, right? Might be overseas. So we need to be able to observe. We want resilience. We want to be able to get metrics coming out of it. And then we've also got operational challenges for us as developers, because now we've got to start maintaining some of those operational things. How do I manage domain names, connectivity between my resources? It's not just a database string that you've lobbed into your app settings. It's other things that you need to manage. And where Aspire fits in is Aspire is going to give you a polyglot distributed application stack. Notice I didn't say .NET. We support more than .NET. Aspire is designed for building distributed applications, streamlining complex development with opinionated choices. So you're going to be able to drop in, I don't do it during this session, but you're going to be able to drop in Python apps, JavaScript apps, Java apps, Rust apps, Go apps. If you can build something and put it inside of a container, you can run and manage it with Aspire, okay? We're going to give you orchestration and diagnostics so that you can run your entire system inside of one application, all right? Diagnostics, service discovery, so you can see what's going on in all the things using standard OpenTelemetry reporting and metrics. You're going to be able to do service discovery so you don't have to remember the connection strings to stitch together your system. We're going to allow you to discover that and pass that information into your applications. And developer first. We want to make sure that you as developers are successful from the minute you say .NET run or Aspire run, all right? We're going to make .NET projects easier and more robust to build. So I'm not even going to finish the last slide or two here. I want to go over and start showing you some of the things that we're going to do with a bunch of live coding around real examples that we're going to build here on stage, okay? Because I do enjoy live coding because, let's face it, watching somebody to code, it's the crucible where you can see and tell that I'm not waving my hands and saying, oh yeah, it just works. No, we're actually going to do it right here live. And I want you to participate. Here's the deal. I have a QR code on the bottom of the screen. If you scan that with your phone, it's going to take you to a website called Neon Link. Neon Link is a site that I wrote that is going to give you the resources, the links to Aspire, the links to the GitHub repository that this came out of, so that you can follow those demos and rerun them yourself at home. Don't worry, the QR code's going to stay up the whole time. Also, that QR code gives you a question and answer screen. You can ask questions there on your phone. You can vote on questions you might see from other folks. And I'll see them come up here. There are pause points between demos, and we'll answer questions, okay? You don't have to give your name. You don't have to raise your hand. You can key it in on your phone, and I'll answer it for you here live on stage. All right, let's get into this. Let's talk about what the demo is and how we're going to build and get along into this. So inside my start folder, I have a little application. Now, I'm going to start this in Visual Studio Code because I like Visual Studio Code. You can use Visual Studio, you can use some other editor, writer, and it all works the same way. This is a standard set of two applications. I have an API here, and I have this website called My Weather Hub. And the idea is I want to be able to run a little weather website, okay? I'm American. I'm going to show the National Weather Service for the United States and be able to select different locations and see the weather for that. Now, in order for me to run that, if I was, here in Visual Studio Code, I'd have to run 2 terminals, so I could .NET run my API, .NET run my weather website. Let me actually do that in Visual Studio so I can show a little bit easier way to do that, right? So this is Visual Studio 2026, and it's showing me files that I don't have open yet. Let's close some of these other things because they're not things yet. All right, terrific. Lots of new stuff. Good. So over here in Solution Explorer, I've got all the things, and I would want to run multiple applications to get things started. So, right, way back in the day, we used to come in here and I would, configure startup projects. I have multiple startup projects. I want to start both my weather website and my API. Now, you can dig in and actually look at the code of these if you'd like, but you'll see that this sets up an HTTP client, so it can go use a configuration for the weather endpoint and go find the API and show some of that information. Additionally, the API up here has information about how it's going to set up OpenAPI. It's going to connect to the National Weather Service here, and you can see there it's going to set up an HTTP client so we can request from weather.gov. So this is a free, easy to access API so you can query and ask questions about what the current weather is in various locations around the United States. Okay, let me actually start that now. So Visual Studio lets me click start and it'll run both applications at the same time, and I get 2 browsers, right? So if we take a look here, here's my API, and you can see it's giving me, here's the list of things you can do, and over here is my actual website. And I've got a set of locations here that I can search through. So I'm from Philadelphia. Let me just start searching for Philadelphia. I'll click that and I get, here's the weather in Philadelphia in Fahrenheit. It's not in Celsius, so temperatures might look weird. 30 is about 0 Celsius. And we can see it's cold. I fly home Thursday, good. It's going to be sunny. I won't have any issues with snow getting home. Fantastic. It's a nice little website that has a microservice and it has a website that connects the two together. Now, you might have in your organization, you might have microservices, you might have databases. It's the same idea of you're stitching together 2 services and running them as one unified system. So let's take this and let's start leveling up. Let's start actually bringing Aspire things into this and making this a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to back out and close this. And first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in service defaults. Service defaults are a series of features that kind of make sense for your application. Things that you want: resilience, service discovery, telemetry. So I'm going to add a new project to this, and I'm going to find the Aspire service defaults project template, and I'm going to call it just service defaults. .NET 10, Aspire version 13, looks good. And I have a service defaults project that's added. Let's take a quick look at what's inside there. So this is a project that contains code that you can edit that uses and exposes features that we've been shipping with .NET for 3 or 4 years. So there's features in here like OpenTelemetry. That's a standard for logging and metrics reporting. We're going to get that set up for you by default so that when you do have telemetry that you want to publish to Azure Monitoring or Datadog or SolarWinds or some other service, you're going to get logging the exact same way into all those services. You just have to configure the endpoint that you want to publish to. I'm going to add default health checks because, let's face it, your friends in the operations center want to know if your application is healthy. So we can add health checks here that will report back if your system is healthy or not. And you can extend those health checks to add other configuration options to check various other states of dependencies to report back health appropriately. Service discovery is going to allow our systems to discover and find other parts of the system. And HTTP client defaults. I want resilience. Go, retry connections, right? Have a timeout in there. These are the things that you don't end up writing for your interactions between systems until your systems start failing to connect to each other. Am I right? You go in and, oh gosh, I need to write a retry in this. Yes, this does this automatically for you by default. The syntax and what these methods do are just down here in the rest of this file. And you can see add OpenTelemetry exporters. By default, it goes and reads a configuration location and sets that up. And we've got commented out code that'll help you get set up with application insights. There's other code and samples out there that'll get you connected to your favorite service that you may want to use. So you can scroll through and read this, and it's very clear and easy to read for how you get that running. Now, I'm going to get service defaults wired up to both of my applications. Hey. And I'm going to do that with this really simple drag and drop move in Visual Studio. I'm just going to grab the project name there and drop it on these other two projects, and it adds that reference for me, right? This is one of those things that folks kind of look at and they're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. So there's my project reference to service defaults. I want to make sure that I start those service defaults. So I'll go back into program for my API. And up here, right up at the top, let's do builder, add service defaults. And that's going to kick off and configure all of that telemetry for me. I'll do the same thing over inside the website. So I have that same reference. So right here, builder, add service defaults. So all this telemetry is set up so everywhere that we had a logger statement, it's going to automatically, instead of sending it to the console or somewhere else that you don't read, it's going to put it into OpenTelemetry where it can be captured and played out for us. So I have those two things in the mix, and I could run this now and we'd see that, hey, it's actually logging to the screen better. I'm going to jump forward a little bit, and I'm going to add the app host project to this. The app host is the part of Aspire that brings in the dashboard. The dashboard and kind of stitches together the entire system so that we know and can manage the entire group of applications running together. .NET 10, Aspire 13, looks good. Let her fly. And I will close this. So now I have this app host project. An app host looks like the same type of thing we see in Program CS, right? Where we're going to start a builder and then we're going to go and run it. But we want to start and manage our two projects here. So I'll go back into Solution Explorer and add references from my weather website to app host, and I'll add a reference to the API project to app host. And inside of here, I can start setting those up and running them. So I'll say build API is builder.addProjects, and no, it's projects. I'm sorry. Thank you. And API. Notice the projects that I have referenced in my solution are dropped into my IntelliSense box here. So we're going to make it easier for you to find and locate .NET projects inside of your solution. And I have projects API there. I need to actually give my API service the service has to get a name. So I'll just call that API. And the variable name over here, let's call this the API so that you can see the difference between them. I'm also going to start the website. So let's call this the website. And I'm going to do almost the exact same thing. Man, it's so good. Copilot, you're being good to me. Thank you. So there's my website. I also I want to do the Kubernetes thing appropriately and say with external HTTP endpoints. So when I deploy to a container solution somewhere, I'm sure that my website is exposed as the external endpoint to interact with. All right, with those couple pieces in here, I can change my startup so that now I'm starting just the app host. So I will right click and set a startup project, and we'll let that one start for us. So we're going to get, this is my Aspire dashboard. And there's stuff that's happening here that I want to make sure that you're aware of. So we get this table that shows us, here's the two applications that I'm running, their current run state, when I started them, and the URLs so that I can access them. So I can click in and still get to that open API endpoint. And I can get to my weather website over here, and there it is, it's still running. Now, I could interact with that and do all the things, but there's more we want to do. I clicked on the little terminal button there, and I get the exact same terminal that I would have running on my desktop, except instead of being in a Windows terminal or in a Bash window, I've got it right here inside my dashboard. And the content here it's not bad, right? I can certainly go through and read this, and if you're like Tank from the Matrix, right? We know that reference. This stuff will go flying by and you know what's going on. But here's the thing, right? Your operations folks, they can't read it that fast. So we've got structured logging so that you can search through and filter appropriately, okay? We've got traces here so that as you interact with it, you can see the full trace of exactly what happened when I clicked on the home page. It got the list of zones to go and display on screen. So I've got some really cool things starting there, and I've got metrics so that I can see what's happening inside of my application. So if we scroll down here, there's the request duration, and I can see, if I zoom out a smidge, there we go, and I can see relative performance of how it's running here on screen. All I did was add service defaults, add references to it inside my two projects. I didn't write any code to log metrics. This is all done for you. You get this free, okay? And we're going to get a whole lot more coming out of this also as we go along. Next steps. Let's actually look at connecting these two projects, right? So right now, when I'm inside my web host, let's close this for a second, and I'm going to jump over to VS Code. Like I said, I like VS Code. So we'll work a little bit over here so that I can show I'm an equal opportunity offender. So down here inside of, I think it's, yeah, there it is. So inside of here, I have this bit right here where it reaches into the configuration to figure out, well, where's the endpoint that I'm going to for this? And that's actually coming out of app settings, right? I have to hard code, here's where you find your API. I don't want to do that anymore because if I move my API, if I deploy a new version, I've got to maintain that same host name and port. And I don't necessarily want to go through all of that. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to create the connection between these two projects over in app host. So if I want to connect the two so the website knows where the API is, I can add that reference here by saying with reference, not with reference to, where'd you get that from, Copilot? With reference the API. So now the website's being passed information about the API. I can go back over to program for the website, and here, right, I can say, let me make sure I get the code right here, right? Yes. I'm blanking. I'm blanking all of a sudden. Oh my gosh, what did I do? I know how to do this, and I don't have my code in front of me. Pardon me for 1 second while I get my notes in front of me here. Yes, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to change this. Instead of saying the URL is builder configuration weather endpoint, I can actually change that and make this. Oh, come on now. Really? I can make this HTTPS, right? HTTPS plus HTTP API. So I'm pointing it to my service name. I don't have to know the entire collection of information about localhost and port number. So all of that kind of fades away. And I'll go back over here, and on my terminal here, I'll drop into app host. And let's .NET watch here, because then we're going to get into doing some more interesting stuff with this project. So that's going to start up, and it should launch my browser for me here in just a second. There we go. And if I go back into the website, no, I don't want to show that just yet. And it's going to load everything up, and it still works the exact same way. If I choose one of these locations, I still get weather reported. Great. But so what, right? It's doing the same thing that it was doing anyway. This isn't impressing me yet. Let me show you how it's stitching these together. So I'm going to click View Details here so you can see these are the environment variables that it's passing in. It's saying that it has a reference to the API. It's creating a reference down here, Services API HTTP, and it's actually passing in the location of the API. But I don't need to memorize that. I don't need to know that. That's something that our operations folks can create a connection, can create that environment variable, and let them manage it. For us as developers, when we're working locally, just figure out where you can run it and stitch it together with environment variables in a standard way that we can reuse and take to all kinds of different places. So I've got that set up, and I now have these two services connected to each other. Not only are they connected to each other, but now I've got a network graph that's going to grow with me and show that my website depends on the API. So as we go through and grow this, there's going to be more features that are going to be added that give you more insight into your application. All right, let's do a little bit more here. I'm going to go through and add a health check to make sure that we can get to the National Weather Service. Okay, so let's go back over to my code, this one, and inside of here I have those changes. Let me go add a reference in the API so that the API can go get do a health check to make sure it can reach the National Weather Service. So right here next to package references, I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. Package reference, and I'm going to include, and this is going to be ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core, health checks, URLs. Fantastic. I have a what? Well, it doesn't mind that. Thank you. Give me 10.0.0. There we go. So, right, fix the error. I did fix the error. Come here. Close that, yes. Restart. And I'll have that reference available. Unable to find package. What? ASP.NET Core, health checks, URIs, glasses. They're important. Tell you what, I'm going to back off to the previous version then. Right, there we go. So now I have the ability to enhance my health checks with a check to see if the website for the National Weather Service is out there and running. So after I do add service defaults for the API, it's inside my other program CS, this one, I'm going to add an additional health check. So let's do builder services, add health checks, and I'm going to start telling it to go find additional information. So I'm going to add a URL group. Nope, not that location. I'm going to go to new URI, and I'm going to tell it I want you to go to the National Weather Service. I'm going to swap that in just a second here. National Weather Service Weather API. And if we can get there, if we can't get there, then I want to mark this as health status unhealthy. And I do need to provide a little bit of client configuration here. Come here, Copilot. You're doing things that I don't want you to yet. Configure client. Yep. And I'm going to go services, client, thank you. Client, I need default request headers, time, no. And I need to add a user agent. Yep. And this is .NET Aspire demo. Really? What are you doing out there? No. All right. Yeah, default request headers. Good. All right. Do I have everything right here? Health status healthy. Configure client. I think that's right. Add URL group. NWS. New URI. Oh, I didn't close that right there. Right. Where is it? Yeah, down there at the end. Yeah, thank you. There we go. All right, so now it's going to check if I have access to NWS. But NWS right now is not defined. We don't know what that is. I can add references to external services. So let's create an external service here. Add external service. And I want this to be able to find... yeah. Man, Copilot, you are getting rammy, aren't you? API, weather, gov. There we go. So now I have an abstraction over my reference to the National Weather Service. Why? Well, you might want to stub in and test with some external reference that you're working with, like Stripe. Do you really want to test and go to the live Stripe website every time you're interacting with your test scenario? No, probably not. Even though you could probably charge a very small amount of money on the boss's credit card every time you do a test, and that's going to go over real well at the end of the month. And the accountants come to you and go, "What are you doing?" We can actually redirect and put it somewhere else by changing this variable here, and all the rest of my code still functions and goes and finds all those things. Last thing that I want to do here, so I added the API here. I want to also tell it that there is, with a HTTP health check, and you are going to go to /health on that website. It restarted everything, and I come back over here, and now immediately my graph enhanced here, right? My National Weather Service reference is added down there. The API depends on the National Weather Service. And when I take a look at the table, there's the National Weather Service. Here's my API. And I can look at the details of this, and I can see that it's healthy. And I can scroll down here, and I can also see further down, I have a service that I'm passing in for the National Weather Service, right? And it's API Weather Gov. So I'm passing in variable names the exact same way that I would for other locations. Okay, and of course, the website still works. So that's kind of table stakes here. We know what's going on with that. All right, no questions in the queue. Fantastic. I must be doing an amazing job. So I've got my National Weather Service stuff there. But if somebody messes up and does something weird, right, and changes that, no, it's supposed to be API Weather Com. Well, that's not the actual website that I should be going to. And let's restart so that it restarts everything here. Building, restarting. And I'll go back over here to the dashboard, and you see my API is unhealthy, right? And it reports back it's unhealthy. And I don't know why it's unhealthy. I can dig in and look further at that. And I've also got Copilot up here that I didn't start it from inside Visual Studio. If you start it from within Visual Studio, you can actually investigate and have it report back what's going on there. Additionally, we have an MCP server here as well in the dashboard that you can start and configure Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, and it will allow you to use Copilot in both of those tools to ask questions of the dashboard. So when weird errors come up, you can see exactly what's going on and get Copilot diagnosing those things from inside Visual Studio. There's all kinds of other neat things you can do with that, like do performance checking as well, because it has access to the metrics. So I'm not going to go into that. They require me to pay to do an AI thing every now and again. So there's questions coming in. Fantastic. Yes, there we go. All right. So I'll get to the questions in just a sec. So this is something that makes it easier for you to interact and diagnose and explore your application. Let me go to some of the questions that have come in. There's a question here about the uptime. Asking, what's the uptime of the app? Of which app? Come on, show me that. It's not showing me my lower thirds, man. What do you mean by the uptime of the app? I'm not sure what that's referring to. This app is going to be up and running for as long as I want to run it. I can tell it to run until I shut everything down in the background. You have some choices there and some flexibility. So, yes, there we go. Oh, my lower thirds aren't going to come up. Do I have them turned on? Let's restart. There we go. Well, thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate the comment there. I'm going to move this back over here, shrink that up a little bit so that it's just a little bit smaller. Well, that's very kind. Thank you for that comment. And let's go to... Nope, it's not going to show my other lower thirds up here. It's supposed to be restarting and showing them. What's the Aspire deployment configuration service discovery story for on-prem hosted containers? Is Aspire an option there too? Yes. So all the things that you do to deploy your applications right now, you can still do the same way. All of your PowerShell scripts, they still work. Right? All of the things that you use to deploy to your on-prem services, they all still work. All that we've done in adding service discovery is given you a unified standard place to feed in those configuration settings to stitch together those applications. Right now, we package and deploy, and we give you a great tool to deploy to Azure. and Azure Container Apps. There are other tools that are coming online that we're building and including with Aspire so that you can standardize and publish using containers, using Kubernetes, pushing to your servers and standardizing that deploy script so it pushes out to all the locations real easy from a standard configuration inside of your app host. So, when you upgrade Aspire, are the service defaults also updated? Do they ever change between versions? We haven't made any updates to service defaults. When you do update your Aspire content, it will update the packages inside service defaults, but it will not make changes to your service defaults. That's your code that you can change and enhance however you see fit. So that's really cool. Hopefully we get to see new pipelines. I'm not going to get into pipelines today. Sorry about that. Let's see. Over here, are service defaults telemetry supported in Blazor WebAssembly? Yes. Blazor WebAssembly, if you are publishing and logging and you're sending it back to the server with the iLogger configurations there, it will get picked up, reported, and sent over to your OpenTelemetry endpoints. So that's absolutely something that you can use. Last question, and then I'll get back into the demos. Is Copilot in the dashboard only usable when started from Visual Studio? It also starts with Visual Studio Code when you run debug from there. You do need to have a Visual Studio, an active Visual Studio license, but Community Edition is free. So you can add one and get two. You can figure that out. So thanks for the questions. Let me dive back in here and get to some more of the demos because I'm running out of time, but I do want to make sure that I cover and get into more of this. So thank you so much for calling out that, hey, we've got other questions because I was looking at my notes. All right, I'll fix the URL and restart that. Let me get into the next demo. I'm going to add Redis caching to my capability here. This is a demo that we do all the time. Redis caching, of course, an easy way for us to improve the performance of our website by caching common responses so that we don't have to reload and hit them again and again and again. So inside of let me go to Visual Studio for this because I can use the package manager over here. Inside of App Host, I'm going to go in here and choose to add an Aspire package. And I'm going to search for Aspire hosting Redis. So this is going to allow me to use a Redis cache inside of a Docker container with the rest of my system. So I'll go and do the install for this. And yes, I accept all those things. And really, all that it's doing for .NET is it's setting up a couple references so that I can use Redis inside of App Host. So if I go to, let's see, I want to go back to App Host. And up in here, I'm going to pass along a reference to Redis. So let's create that reference. I'll say Redis equals builder, yeah, I should be getting add Redis here. Right, I'm in app host, NuGet app host. We added that. That's fine. I'm going to call this, yeah, I have that right. Really? So, why am I getting that? I'm willing to bet it's that restarting. Try this from over here now. And I should have Redis introduced and added to my dashboard. There it goes. And now on the dashboard, I have a Redis cache. And it looks like it's still starting. Redis is starting, just started. Here we go. So, you say it succeeded. Really? That's a new one on me. And I thought I fixed the API. API weather gov. Health check. Don't make me have to jump forward on this because I know the things all work here. Because Docker should be running. No, I don't want to be looking at Llama. Yep, there it is. Nope, it's not going to start Redis. Oh, that's fun. Okay. Which version? Hang on. I might be on a version up than what I have here. 1 second. Yep, it is. It's a version ahead. And restart. That's not restart. It's this one. One more time. Starting. Come on. There we go. Now Redis is running. So now I have a cache running, and I can start to log and put things into that cache, and I can give references to that cache to the rest of my projects. So let's go back over to my API, and I want to pass in information so that the API can use Redis caching. So I'm going to come over here and give the API a reference to Redis. I'm going to go back into, no, I'm going to go back into the API up here, and let's add a package. And I'm going to add an Aspire package, yes. Stack Exchange Redis. I want Stack Exchange Redis output cache. And I might actually have it in the dropdown. Nope. This one. I'm going to grab that version. So here we go. And now I have that available to me. So back inside the API, where I added the NWS manager here, I already have something that does add output cache and sets up this base policy. Now, what that's going to do is every 15 minutes, it's going to purge the cache of entries, because the weather service doesn't update services, but once every 15 minutes, it updates the reports. So I see a couple more questions coming in. I'll get to those in just a second. So I have that. Let me also get some insight into that by adding Redis Insight. There we go. And I'll restart the whole thing here. And we'll take a look. And then I'm going to jump forward a demo here as well. So now I have this Redis Insight running. There it is. And it lets me connect in and take a look. Come here. At what's going on inside my cache. Now, once I start requesting information over here, this will populate with that cache. What are we doing? What are we doing? No, don't load sample data. I have something that I'm missing in configuration. I'm going to jump forward in my demos here because I've only got a few minutes left. So I've added things. The rest of the demos do show the cache working here. The next demo I'm going to do is we can add AI capabilities to our application using GitHub models that are available inside of Aspire. So I'm going to back up and go to demo 3 here. So you'll be able to do this yourselves. So demo 3, open this one. And with this, nope, it's demo 4. Wrong one. So at this point, you can add a reference to GitHub models, and you'll be able to get access to the free GitHub AI models that you can use inside of your applications. So what I've done here, not only do I have the GitHub models, but I can add a reference to them by just saying builder add GitHub model. I give it a service name that I want to refer to it as, AI model, and then I specify a model that I want to connect to, GPT-4o Mini. Over in my application, I can then start wiring that up, and you'll see here I added the Azure AI inference package so we can infer which model we're using. And down here, I've added Microsoft Extensions AI so that I can write a simple interaction with it. Inside my program, there's where I wired up the GitHub model. And I've put together this thing, Forecast Summarizer, that does all the things to work with AI, and other folks are talking about AI as part of this event. And I do some metrics creation here. I have a system prompt to summarize weather forecasts and report it back. So what I've done is I have that summary come back to my main page, and I can present and show some sort of a background that goes along with what the weather's going to be for that location. So I'll just .NET watch here to get things started, and I am looking at a package downgrade. Which one is this? Weather Hub. There is... Come on now. Yeah. Weather Hub is referencing Azure AI Inference 13.1. Here. And this one we'll take back to 13.0. Just give me the latest 13.0. All right. And I will come to these questions. I see I've got 5 questions waiting for me. That's going to load up and get all connected. You see there my reference to the GitHub models. While that's loading, you'll see I have an expanded graph now with the National Weather Service being referenced by the API, my Redis cache, the website, the AI model on GitHub, and I have an API key that I've already stored that contains the connection information for me to get onto GitHub. So let me come back in here, and I will search once again for Philadelphia. And now when it comes up, unable to locate Philadelphia. Are you kidding? It's gone. Fine. Find me Manhattan. Really? Okay. I'm about out of time. I need to let you know that does work. Trust me. I'm not sure why we're not finding them, and we could go through the logs here and see that it's getting errors, and I can actually look at the stack trace here and see exactly what's going on. Oh, you know what this is? My GitHub token has expired. That's what's going on there. So I'm gonna hold off on that because I do have a couple questions here, and we're just about out of time. So I want to make sure that I get to your questions. All of the code for this, and you'll be able to set up your own tokens to interact with this. So let me get to your questions over here. How's support for native Azure resources such as Azure Service Bus? So you saw me add a what we call an integration for Redis. There is a service bus integration out there that you can use that has the ability for you to use both a live service bus running on Azure, working locally in developer mode, or you can also have it run with an emulator that runs locally. The emulator depends on a SQL Server Docker container to be installed, but you can use and work with that locally. Continuing here, can we configure authentication and environment variables for external services in AppHost, or is that still something we need to do in the referencing project? Yes, you can do that in AppHost and pass those along as parameters into your individual projects. That way, configured in one place, save those as user secrets inside of AppHost and pass them along. You're going to want to look at the add parameter capabilities inside of AppHost, and that'll give you the ability to have a reference you can pass into your other projects. If my organization uses Kubernetes with microservice orchestration already in place, what is the benefit of adding Aspire apart from local development? That's exactly it. Your local development, you don't need to know all the things to stitch together Kubernetes. Aspire, when you go to publish, does that for you. When you're working locally, you're still working with the same containers, you're still working with your projects running locally, and you can debug into them, and when it comes time to publish to Kubernetes, you can still use the same Kubernetes resources. But for you as a developer, you don't need to become an expert in Kubernetes or the entire architecture of what your production space looks like. You have sensible defaults for you that are going to get you up and running faster. How do you add more applications to Aspire that are not included in your solution? When you call add project, you saw me say add project, and there was a generic there. Instead of the generic mode, you can pass in a path to a project file, and it will load that. We also have extensions, so you can say add Python project, add JavaScript project, and point it to the various entry points for those projects, and they will start them up for you as well. Has anyone ever said that you sound like Jim Gaffigan? No. No, and I don't like Hot Pockets. Can we get a faster Cosmos DB emulator? I would love to hear that as well. I will send along the feedback on that. All right? Thank you so much for coming out to the session. You have the QR code that'll get you all the resources. I didn't click through on that last demo. I could have reset my key, but I wanted to make sure I answered your questions. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your event here at Sveitog. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about how to build those integrations. I showed you Redis here, and we talked about some of the other ones. I'm going to show you how you can build that, how you can dial in some of those other project types in a little bit more advanced session tomorrow. All right, thanks so much.